Welcome back to Better Than a Pill. Today, I'm so excited to have Limor Bergman Gross here on as a guest. And Limor is an executive coach for women in tech leadership, and she just loves to help empower women. So, welcome, Limor.
Hi, Carrie. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Great. I'm so excited to have you too. And today we're going to be talking about how having a fulfilling career plays a significant role in the overall health and wellness of women. So we're going to get started and just want to kind of ask you more a little bit about how your story and how you got involved in doing the work that you do.
Yeah. So, in very briefly, my over 20 years career was in tech. Started as an engineer and grew into leadership positions. Along the way, got married, raised a family of 4 kids, moved countries. So I moved to the US and we moved back to Israel. So I made a lot of changes. And along the way, I found a passion of mine, supporting women in tech, started mentoring, found that I love it, and I get good feedback. So eventually, over the years, that led me to what I'm doing today, to coaching mainly women in leadership roles.
Oh, that's awesome. And there is such a need for that because I'll tell you myself that tech is not a strength of mine. Okay. So I admire that, just being able to do that. There's so much involved. And then, but you took it to another level as well. So it's not just women in tech, but women in tech within the leadership realm.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, that's awesome. So in your experience in doing this work and being involved in obviously raising a family, switching countries, which is no small feat, and maintaining a career, at a personal level and what you see around you as well. What are some of the biggest things you see women struggling with when it comes to having a career?
There are many things. I mean, I think if we're talking about family, a lot of women struggle with how or is it possible to grow a career while still investing in their personal lives, family, raising kids. Can we have it all, basically? And the answer is yes. Yes, we can have it all. It doesn't mean that it doesn't come with a price. Meaning, right? I mean, you can do all, you can be successful, you can advance your career and have a family. I have 4 children, not a small family. So you can do it all, but usually there are prices to pay along the way. And I did pay some prices along the way. So it's all about priorities, how you spend your time, being very effective with what you spend your time on, but you can do it all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, what you just said resonates with me as a woman with a career in being an entrepreneur and doing that. It's like time management right there. That has to be a key factor,
Yeah.
right? And just speak a little bit about, because I know that you said it doesn't come with a price. Some of the things that you found as maybe things you encountered, your roadblocks along the way.
Yeah. So when I started my career, I was working in the, I mean, I was actually until 2016, I worked predominantly in an office setup. So I was commuting every day, which was rigid, right? I mean, I had to be in an office approximately 9 to 5. I mean, in Israel, hours sometimes even longer, but it was rigid, which meant that I almost never picked up my kids from school. So I had to pay a price. Fortunately, nowadays things are shifting and there is more flexibility. And I've seen that since starting working fully remote in 2016. Finally, I had flexibility. Finally, things didn't have to be black or white. Finally, I could decide how I spend my time. And I wanted flexibility. I could pick up my kids, I could help them. And again, it's a preference. I prefer to do that. Well, a little bit maybe kind of mushing around my personal life and work. So when you have flexibility, sometimes it means that you have less, clear borderlines between your work hours and personal hours. And I know for some people it's very important. So it was my personal choice. But that's one example of, some struggles I had. And obviously, pregnancies were a big one for me. Usually I had to make a choice. What do I do now? If I want to have another child, sometimes it meant that, well, maybe that's not a good time for me to switch a role, switch a job. I think that is changing too. And a lot of employers are more open even to hiring women that are pregnant. And it's less of a barrier, but I think it's still a barrier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Those are great examples. And I think that, I like what you said. I mean, it is a matter of preference and being able to have that flexibility, because I know I prioritize my kids. And in fact, I love my work, but me personally, they rank above that, right? In my mind. And so having that balance, because you still want to be able to contribute to the world with the gifts that you're given, right? But yeah, so that battle I can totally understand. It just sounds like what, you reaching that flexibility for yourself. What was it, the shift in the work environment that provided the flexibility, or expand a little on that?
Yes, absolutely. I'll be happy to. It was a combination. First of all, the work environment dramatically different. Working 100% from home. I did travel quite a bit back then, but I mean, when I was working, when I was not traveling, I was at home, which allowed me to, first of all, removed commute time. So I saved 2 hours a day right from the start, and also allowed me the flexibility. The second aspect was trust, high level of trust from my manager, but also from the organization, which allowed me to be very transparent about my schedule. Everything was there on my calendar. I didn't hide anything. For example, I had regular hours a day that I would block for picking up kids from school and driving them for school. If I had a parent-teacher conference or an important meeting at school, I would block my calendar in the middle of the day and I would put there parent, teacher, or whatever it was. That level of transparency and trust allowed me that flexibility without feeling guilty.
Yes. I love that, and it's like, because it's different, like in a sense on my end, I do that, but I'm reporting to myself. I run my own business, right? So I can block those in, but to have that level of trust, reporting to a company, putting that in there, but they trust you because why? You are obviously being productive and you are contributing to the company, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And you're still able to cater and help your children, that's awesome. That is so good. And so I guess it would make, in a standpoint, the remote aspect of being able to work from home is a win-win. And just especially as a woman that's a mom, right? And also the company plays an important role in that, allowing you to make those priorities, right?
That's correct. And I think one of the challenges that I see, at least, that companies sometimes employers have problems trusting their employees. And I know that some people take advantage of this, but employer, and I can share that as a manager for so many years, it's very easy to know who is performing well, who is overperforming well, shining, and who is underperforming. Even if you don't see those people and they work from home, you notice that. It's very easy.
Mm.
And I think that trust has to be there, and also being very clear on what you do with underperformers. You know how many companies I work for that prefer to avoid and not deal with that? And that sends a very, very bad message to everyone. So when you deal with the underperformers, you take a stand, you do whatever it takes to help them. And if not, you just move them out. It sends a very clear message. What are your standards? And you just keep the ones that are, trustworthy.
Right. Right. And that's being shown in the work you do, holding your commitments, regardless of, if you're a mom and you're also factoring in times to pick up your kids, they can see that. They're aware versus somebody we're always going to have, like you're saying, the people that are taking advantage of the system. They're not showing up. They're not producing. And so would you rather have a mom that factors in time to pick up her kids, but's really committed and responsible, and you have the trust and is producing for the company, right? I mean,
Absolutely. And it doesn't have to be just moms, right? I mean, dads want to be there for their kids as well. And some people take care of their elderly parents. I mean, or God forbid, someone's sick in the family. There's so many other circumstances than just, taking care of kids, that companies that allow that flexibility will eventually profit from that, because they will keep the good employees, and those employees will stick around because they'll appreciate that level of support.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And what you're seeing is that is shifting, and we're seeing more and more companies adapt to doing this, right? Yeah.
Yes, it is shifting. Not all companies. I mean, I see also companies who has problems with that, and now that we don't have the pandemic anymore. I see, at least here in Israel, many companies trying to go back to the office and kind of having some stricter policies about how many days you can work from home and which days of the week. So it depends.
Yeah. And when it comes to the remote aspect of work, I mean, just off the top of my head, I would think that you could be even more productive from home. Like you just said it, you're cutting out commute time and you can apply that into your work day.
Yes, but that is also personal and subjective. For me, absolutely. For many people I know, yes. But some people really need, I know, we have friends that we visited over the summer, and they live in the US. And what the woman, she works from home. She loved working from home. The man, he always worked from an office. He said, I'm most productive. He likes that separation, that clear separation between home and work. And he needs this structure and having the office set up in order to work. So it really, really depends on the person. And I know that when I worked remote, there were people at the company that really lacked the social interaction, and they wanted to have an office set up and meet people. So I think there's no one answer fits everyone.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yes, 100%. Because having the ability to step out, or if you're used to being in an office setting and that's where you're most productive, that totally makes sense, as well as being able to connect. There's value in being able to connect with people in person.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is great so far. So tell me, when it comes to having a career, let's talk a little bit about some of the mental health aspects. Let's just look at that piece first.
Absolutely, yeah. So as women and mothers, we tend to put ourselves last. That's what I did, which has a toll. A lot of stress, and not sleeping very well, not so take a look at your life, and usually there are several aspects that you can look at: your sleep quality, your nutrition, how well is your nutrition, your physics, right? How active are you? How do you feel physically? I mean, do you just breathe very heavily just when climbing a few stairs, or do you feel like comfortable just walking a little bit? So different aspects. Do you worry a lot? Do you think about different things? A lot of things occupy your mind all the time. You worry about so many things. If the answer is yes to several of those, then yes, probably you're not taking care of yourself. And you need to start thinking, what do you need in your life? So it can be investing in, doing something for you to relax, to unwind, and starting to do some physical activity, whatever you like. It can be taking a walk in the afternoon. It can be, going for the gym, for Pilates, whatever you like. There is no one answer. And getting to sleep at an hour that suits you and your schedule. I know that sometimes I stay up too late. So yeah, taking care of yourself.
Yeah, so 100%. I know you're speaking in my language because that's what I see a lot of is that, as a woman, professional entrepreneur or in business, we often neglect our health and wellness. And it's not, unfortunately, a lot of times until we start to experience the things you're talking about or some signs, then it's like, whoa, I need to really find a way to make this a priority. And for me, it's easy because I do this for a living, and so it's ingrained into that part of my routine. And I think that once a woman has that awareness, right, then it's just making it a habit, just like showing up for work or being productive at work has become a habit, right? Would you say?
Absolutely. And I really am a great believer in habits. Everything that you start doing, maybe at the beginning it's hard, but like, for example, working out is a great example, right? It's really hard to start, but once you make it in your schedule and you do it for several weeks, it just becomes something you do, like brushing your teeth, right? I mean, when you start, okay, every morning I make myself breakfast. So if you start making a habit of making a healthier choice around your breakfast, maybe you slice, I don't know, fruit or whatever you like to eat in the morning that makes you feel good, then eventually it will become a habit and you'll just do it instead of grabbing
Yes.
something unhealthy.
Yes. And it's like, making yourself a priority to do that. And exactly one habit at a time. And you'll see
Yeah,
see that. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, and that's, like you're saying, we combined in there the mental and the physical aspects, but they're not separate. Our mind is connected to our body, right?
absolutely. I believe everything is connected.
And like in your experience, because I know that you're making your health and wellness a priority, and obviously you want to empower other women to do that. That also affects your productivity, I would say, right?
Yes, I think that when you take care of yourself, you're more focused. You're able to do more. You're able to
Yeah,
just do more with less time.
yeah, 100%. That's what seems to be the case for me. And having an outlet, like for example, physical activity, like you mentioned, does that help? Or and I see this a lot with mental health aspects. Just thinking, if you're anxious about a work problem, possibly taking a 5-minute walk, right?
Yeah, I always joke and say that running is my therapist. So, physical activity is really good for mental health. And again, whatever you like to do. Some people like going dancing, whatever you like doing, and which makes you feel good about yourself and makes you kind of have positive thoughts, do it.
I love that. I like how you said that running is your therapist. That's great. Very, very cool. Let's talk a little bit about how having a career can help in terms of having financial stability.
Absolutely. So obviously, I worked all my life, and both me and my husband worked in high-paying jobs, and obviously, we are well set up. Um, so when you invest in yourself and in your career, you grow your career, you earn money, and you know how to handle money too. I mean, obviously, you need to have, and this is unfortunately something we don't get in school, like financial education, how to handle money in a way that we don't just chase it all the time, and we know how to spend it wisely and save it and all that. So I think that when you have a career and know how to handle your finances, eventually you'll be set up for success, you and your family.
Right. And I like what you said too. It's like there does need to be a course on that because there's, you kind of have to learn as you go and reach out for support, other professionals. I know I have. I mean, it's just like, it's not something that's talked about.
Yes, and I can share that even though we made a lot of money, we thought about what we spend money on and what is not really needed. And so many people around us, earned less, but had the urge to buy a newer car, and live in a bigger home, and all about how they're thinking about how they're seen, right? How other people look at them and their lives. And I remember people tell me, why do you keep that car? Why you don't just get a new one? I said, well, I don't need a new one, and I have nothing to prove to anyone. And so this is another aspect that I see that so many people are obsessed with how they are perceived and what others see in them, and see, if you have a newest car or a bigger home, then you're perceived more successful.
Mm,
So I
yeah.
think maybe trying to think about, well, you don't need to worry too much about what others think of you, and feel successful regardless of those external things.
Yes, that is exactly right. I couldn't agree more. And that would be a mistake, I think, that like even somebody could make if you get caught up in that, worrying more about the exterior and how you are perceived by others. That could lead to not being so healthy, right? In many ways.
Yes, yes. So I'm not saying that you need to be frugal and not spend money and all that, but kind of find the balance, find the right balance that you live comfortably, you enjoy, but you don't do that for the sake of what others think.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So having that sense of financial stability goes deeper, and it sounds like you have a really good experience to share on that, being that you have been productive financially, but you've also made choices to get where you are. Right.
That's true. Yeah, yeah. I lived comfortably, but I never looked for how can I max my credit to buy the biggest house I can afford and take the biggest mortgage I can take, because that's what usually people do. They try to really buy a level above their means.
Mm, yeah. Instead of living within their means.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Good insight. Thank you, Limor, for that. And yeah, so there's, just so many aspects here involved when it comes to having a career, and, that we have to think about. That would be, we're talking about just kind of what are some other mistakes that you see women make when it comes to having a career? I know we touched a little bit, now on the exterior, but what else have you seen?
I think that one common mistake that women do, and I did it, I'm guilty as well, is focusing really a lot on execution and less about their brand, promoting themselves. And we think that we just need to execute and do a good job and be humble, be quiet, and someone will pay attention and someone will acknowledge what we're doing and will be rewarded, whether it's financially or, being promoted. It does happen sometimes, but it's not a good recipe for success. And men typically have no problem show off in what they're doing, externalizing it, asking for more money, asking for a promotion, and women less so, which eventually hurt us. So I learned along the years not shy away from externalizing what I do, from asking for what I want and what I think I deserve, on
Mm,
top of doing a good job. And pushing. Sometimes it was not easy. Sometimes I need to be very persistent. But think about it, what we will do for our kids, right? If your
mhm.
kids had some challenge at school, let's say, right? And you had to speak with the staff, with the school staff, you would do whatever it takes to solve the problem for your child. I know that because I've done that. I've been very persistent with anything related to my kids. But then why we don't do the same when it what is related to us and our careers. We need sometimes to have thick skin. And we heard no, take it as not now. And being persistent about what we think we deserve, what we want, not taking no so easily. And sometimes when odds are against us, then we need to make sometimes decision of, okay, maybe that's not the right place for me and I need to move on. But not giving up so easily.
Yes, that's a great point. And asking, and if you're not receiving whatever it is, or the answer is no, I like how you said no is not now.
Yeah.
Right. Because that allows freedom for you to explore it later.
Yeah.
That's great. And yeah, so I think that, that would, fall along in the lines of, social health, like being able to, because put yourself first, and the relationships that you have in this career that you have, and who you're reporting to, you're being an advocate for yourself, right?
Yes, absolutely. And people will take you more seriously when you behave like that, when you advocate for yourself, when you are persistent, when you're not making it easy, right? I mean, our job is not to make it easy for our managers. If let's say I want to get promoted or I want to have a raise, and my manager say, well, it's a tough time, we don't have a budget, blah, 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 whatever. Okay, we can be empathetic and understand but on the other hand, well, that's not my problem. I mean, I don't need necessarily to make it so easy on you and just take a step back and say, okay, whatever. No, sometimes we need people to fight for us and support us and say, well, yeah, I understand that, but I still, need to make sure that I'm being treated properly and I'm supported.
Yeah, that's great. And that makes you a great leader.
Yeah. Yeah. Because a lot of times we say, well, I know my manager is really good. Because again, they're not bad people. I know he's a really good person. He cares, but okay, but you don't need to make it so easy for them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you see a lot of women falling into that path that you described of not wanting to take that action.
Yeah, because we feel uncomfortable. We feel like, oh, this person is so nice, especially with the nice ones, right? This person is so nice. He really cares. He says all the right things. But eventually, well, it doesn't help me. So we feel uncomfortable putting them in a tough spot and pushing back and basically making them uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And believing in yourself enough and the work that you're doing, right? That you deserve that, whatever it might be, promotion or recognition or raise or whatever it might be.
Yes, sometimes it is as simple as sending an email. You know how many times I heard women that I coach that there was something about whether it was a promotion announcement or an email about something they have done and they were not really given good enough credit. And they felt uncomfortable pushing back on that.
Mm.
So sometimes it's even those things that, well, sending an email, what that doesn't take any resources, that's not money, or simply writing something properly.
Yeah, and that's a form of communication, right? And if those things aren't addressed, I would imagine, they will compile and pile up, and then it affects you on a not so good level energetically, affects your health, right?
Yeah, affects your health and how you're perceived and your confidence. Absolutely.
And so the work you're doing now, let's talk a little bit about that. Are you on your own? Are you still working with a company?
So I'm on my own. I have my own company and I help women I also work with men, but my passion is supporting women, especially in tech leadership. I know it's tough being there.
Yeah. And so the kinds of women that you're working with, when you say tech leadership, just to understand that a little bit more for us that don't really understand, what does that involve?
Usually it's middle management. So either it's a first line or second line manager. It can be in very technical field like engineering. Sometimes it's in marketing or sales. Doesn't have to be just or product, doesn't have to be like super technical.
Mm-hmm.
And I help them with just expanding their point of view and what they think is possible. I
Okay.
challenge them, right? Because if someone tells me, well, I cannot do that, I say, okay, let's figure out why you think you can't. Because a lot of times it's in our head, all the limitations we put. So I'm helping them break those inner barriers that they have and see more possibilities and get courage to
I
start
love
kind
that.
of breaking those boundaries that they have.
That is great. And so, wow. So you're sharing your experience and empowering women and some men, right, to do the same thing.
Yes, and not always I super share. I'm sharing
Mhm.
if I feel like it's needed, but typically I like to just focus on the woman I'm working with and what she can do. Because sharing experience is valuable and nice, but not always what works for me necessarily will work for someone else. So I try really to encourage the people I work with to find out what's going to work for them.
That's empowering right there. Very well said. Then that makes sense. And in this in the work that you're doing, you're seeing women be able to make that shift. Yes.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. I just today
Wow.
finished a coaching relationship with someone that wanted to get a leap in her career, and we worked on how she presents herself and what she needs to do strategically. And today she told me, well, now I need you to work with you on my next role, because she got the job, she got the promotion. And absolutely, it's not always promotion related. Sometimes it's just a different way of thinking and operating that really
Mm.
change everything for them.
Right, right. It's
Yeah.
a, that's awesome. And it's awesome that you are doing this now. And just on a side note, how do you like being in the position of being an entrepreneur versus working for a company?
I can't do it any other way, Carrie. After so many years as an employee, I realized that I wanted to work for my own and I wanted to break free from the corporate world. Not because it's a bad thing, but it was the timing for me was right to work for my own. I love being my own boss. Having the freedom, and you probably know that too, right? Having the freedom to kind of decide on my own destiny, who I work with, what I focus on, when I work, when I don't work. I don't need to give anyone any kind of justifications to why I want to take whatever time I want off. So just that's worth it for me.
Yeah, it's a great freedom. Great freedom is what I'm
Yes,
hearing. Yes.
yes, yes, freedom. And it comes with a price.
Yeah.
Comes with a price, like everything in life, right? It's less predictable.
Hmm.
There's not predictability of a paycheck.
Yeah. Yeah. Very different because
Yeah,
you're making that paycheck, right?
yeah, exactly, exactly.
Oh, so that's awesome. This has been so great. I've loved getting to hear more about your work and your views. It's just awesome. And yeah, so much power here. All of these things affecting our health and wellness. I mean, 100%. This has been great. I thank you so much for coming on today, Limor.
Thank you so much, Kira, for having me. It was a pleasure.
And For our audience listening today, I'm going to be including all of Limor's social links as well as her website in this episode so you know how to get in contact with her. And remember, we do episodes every week on Wednesday, and I look forward to having you join me then.